Welcome back to Cocktails and Classics as we make our way through Band of Brothers, our first ever watch. I'm Dylan. Joining me as always is Ben. You heard us talk about it last week, but maybe you're still not interested. Maybe you're interested. Maybe it's your first time hearing about it. We got a newsletter over on our website, www.cocktailsandclassicspod.com. On the homepage, you scroll about halfway. You can enter in for our newsletter. You know, we're going to give you some fun trivia, kind of challenge you. We're going to give you episode updates. We're going to give you movie news, trailers, like what's happening. What are we interested in seeing? And hopefully it's stuff that you're interested in seeing. And we're not going to spam you. We're just going to do it periodically, maybe monthly, maybe as we release episodes. But yeah, check that out if you're interested in that. Episode 6 of Band of Brothers is Bastogne. Previously in episode 5, we saw them head to Bastogne with no ammo, no winter clothes, no gear really. And then this episode is them in Bastogne in the middle of this fight around Christmas and through Christmas. But it is told through the lens of Eugene Roe, who is a medic in the 101st Easy Company. Yeah, this might be my favorite episode yet. Do you agree or no?
I don't know if this one's my favorite yet, but I could see it. I really like that this one focuses on someone new in a different
Yes,
way, and it really it comes at the idea of what the war was like in a completely different angle than the rest of the episodes have.
exactly. And the storytelling I feel like in this is so unique to any episode that we've seen so far. And like you were saying, it's somebody new. We get this Eugene Roe. The story is pretty much told from his point of view as he's running from foxhole to foxhole, trying to get supplies, making runs back to this to Bastogne, where they have a hospital set up, and you know it's crazy how I feel like, and I'm sure anyone who has been watching the show is kind of probably thinking the same things and having these discussions that we're having, but like I feel like we always discuss something and then it comes back up later. So like a couple episodes ago, I think it was episode 4 with when Bull got shot, where we were talking about like medics within this war and their like functions and how they just have to run out and get guys and do stuff. And then we have this entire episode, and I'm sure people who have seen this before and are watching this or just listening along and being like, oh, these guys they're not ready for episode 6 when it's all about a medic and how that that affects the war. But yeah, it was just like, wow, that's crazy that we're kind of talking about like it takes a lot for somebody to like run around and be the medic, and then here we are where we see firsthand kind of like what it takes.
Not just what it takes, but what it takes from you, right? Like, you really watch Roe from the start of the episode to the end of the episode, and it seems like the events of this, like, I don't know what exactly the timeline of this episode is, but it kind of breaks him a bit. Towards the end of the episode, he's just sitting in the foxhole, and they're like, hey, Captain needs you, and he's like, yeah, okay. No, not like a go back to bed, okay. Like a we need to get going now, okay.
You don't get as much from this Renee character, but kind of how they're in similar roles, sort of like she's a nurse in for the Americans and the Allies, and he's the medic, and just the way that like they have this dialogue and discussion at one point after they are unable to save the one soldier, and he's like, "Oh, your hands," like she's like, "Oh, I hate my hands" or whatever. He's like, "Oh, but they're like a gift from God, like that you help heal people," and she says something along the lines of like, God would never give you like a gift this cursed or whatever. Like she's seen so much death, and I feel like him at that point, he's not never really saw from like her viewpoint. I feel like he was just so gung ho and just ran balls to the wall into this thing, and then I had this conversation with Renee, kind of like started to shake him. Yeah, by the end of it, like you said, he's sitting in the foxhole and he's kind of like out of it. Yeah, it's I don't know. That's part of that. The whole thing is kind of this reason why I really enjoy this episode. I don't know. Like it's like just watching Roe like attempting to save the guys, being selfless. You kind of see him so much character development from this guy who literally just came in the first episode. For him, like you see his faith. We learn about his grandmother who was a traitor, and just like everything about Roe. I feel like within this hour to make you really feel for this character.
Yeah, it is impressive that they took, for as much as the other characters have kind of gotten throughout the series, that this took like one episode and really, I mean, they make you feel for this guy all the way, and it, like I said, by the end of it, when you're just kind of seeing him, well, you see him kind of broken, um, and then also kind of the uplifting spirit of him finally feeling, I don't know, to me it almost felt like him viewing himself as a part of the unit. Like I feel like most of the time in the beginning it was like him with the other medics or this and that, but then at the end when he sits down with Babe and he's like, "Hey, you called me Babe. What? Yeah, you called me you call me by my nickname." Huh. I did? It just kind of seems like one of those moments where maybe finally he's been through it too, that he feels like he's part of the unit with everyone else. So I guess towards the end, it's a little bit of an upward ending for him where he kind of
Yeah,
gets that camaraderie. But like I said, towards like the 3/4 mark of the episode where it just seems like he's broken,
yeah.
which I don't blame him for what you see him go through in the course of an hour for us. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot for someone to handle, to be responsible for, I mean, life and death throughout.
Well, and I wonder if it's part of that. Sometimes people kind of like it's in like healthcare and that sort of stuff. Like you disassociate sort of from the people. So like maybe part of that earlier on is like Roe. He's sitting by himself while they're all eating dinner or whatever, and like he doesn't call them by his nickname. Maybe part of that is like that disassociation of like yeah, like we're all part of the same team or whatever. But like I also don't want to get close to these people because like they die, and then here I am digging through their stomach trying to like save them and stuff. So like maybe it's kind of like distancing himself from that pain. Maybe that was part of it. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I never really thought of it like that, but that's a good call. Yeah, I mean, realistically, he kind of has to be able to look at these guys as not necessarily, I don't want to say like a problem that needs fixed, but a lot of the times like that's what you're looking at it. Um you're not really seeing a person, you're seeing a wound. So I guess I kind of get that in terms of not wanting to, just be looking at someone that you think of as a close friend as you're sitting there trying to pull shrapnel from their leg and completely take care of them. The last thing you want to be thinking of is them almost as a person. So that makes sense.
Man, I don't know. I felt for him when they were going for that. Was that like a reconnaissance mission or something? And like Martin tells him to stay behind, and he's literally just sit there crouched against the tree, like waiting, and you just can't see anything. It's just the fog. But then he like hears the gunfire. He sees people running back, and like he like can't do anything. And then like Julian gets shot, and Babe can't get out there. And I was expecting. I don't know why. I mean, I mean, probably because it's like a show, and I was expecting Roe to just like fucking full sprint out there to go get him. Like I was like waiting for that moment of him like to be like, "Yeah, go Roe, go go get him." But we never really got that.
I was in the same boat where I'm like, oh, he heard the gunfire, he's gonna take off. And instead I had to sit there like grimacing as I'm seeing it cut to Julian every like 2 seconds as his
Yeah.
neck is just oh man, that one was rough. I'm not a big like I'm not a big gore person or like that type of stuff gets to me when it just kept cutting back to him. I was like, can we not? Can we just let him go, man? You're not even if the medic gets to him, I don't think there's a situation where he survives that.
Yeah, because that was like the whole like front of his neck.
Yeah, I mean the entire front of his neck was like gone.
Yeah, this I feel like this episode. I mean, understandably so. It's about a medic in a war. We did get a lot more of the like gore and the close-ups, like them digging on the wounded dude on the table, and I was like, oh god, okay. I honestly also could not imagine being the person who has to do that. That I might puke in real life if I had to do that.
Yeah, I not good with it. Like literally I remember one time my son bumped his head and was bleeding. Oh man, I was hysterical because I don't do well with that as it is. And then knowing it's him and he's upset, and I'm just like, I don't know what to do. There's blood. Like, I feel like just such a helpless little boy right now. Like, I feel just completely emasculated as there's nothing I can do at the sight of blood.
Even like just like when my daughter just like kind of trips and like skins her knee, and I'm like, ooh, and my wife is like, Dylan, please stop. Like you're making it worse when with your reactions, and I'm like, I know what that feels like. Like, still hurts. And you just kind of like tense up and flinch for the. You're like waiting for her reaction to start crying.
Yeah, no, I get that 100%. Where you get that moment where you're just like, ooh, no, oh God. But you can't do that because then they're going to think it's terrible.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter. Luckily, Grayson's normally not too. He's normally not too bad with that. It was just the one time that he caught his head on the corner or something, and
the
just yeah, he was bleeding, and then we're just
was
oh god,
was that the air return thing?
yes,
No, okay, yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
yeah, that one was brutal. So yeah, no, I could not imagine going into any sort of medical related thing because most everything else I've not had an issue with, but blood gets me. It's one of the main reasons I don't like horror. Like I like suspense movies, but I don't like horror movies because I just don't like the gore aspect of it.
I get that though. I mean, obviously, like body horror is not for everyone. All right, couple of notes I had. Fucking Nixon coming out of the like trench half asleep when Sink shows up, and they're like debriefing with like Winters and is it? I don't think it was Dyke. Who was the first? Who's the other commander? But like Nixon coming out, I'm like, God, that's so Nixon. That is so his character, and I feel like this episode, once again, we've talked about Nixon a couple times, but
You sometimes wonder how he gets away with it. Also, the fact that he is 100% the more I watch this, the more I can't unsee his character from Office
oh
Space,
my
where
God.
he's just constantly like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't really care. And it's just like, I don't get this, how this fits in with the rest of the soldiers. Doesn't make sense to me.
He did have a moment in this episode because I have the captions on. He did have a moment where he did some leadership in gunfire and was like, "Hey, got to get out of here." Or pull back, or I forget what it was, but like he did lead them a little bit. But yeah, he's always like just kind of like this like slacker which is so weird to be at like that position of power. Like he's a captain, right? Or
Yeah, he's a captain.
like he just kind of he's like so nonchalant about all of this, and I'm like, all right, dude, sure.
Yeah, I also just love when they're like all their complaints are like that we don't have enough people. We literally don't have an aid station. We don't have like there's gaps in the line all over the place because we don't have enough people to hold the line. Like we literally we're struggling here. There's a ton of issues with what we're doing. We have no supplies, all of these things. We can't even set up any sort of command post at this point. And basically they're just like yeah, well, hold the line. Adios. Like really? God damn, man.
So is this like a German offensive, or are the Allies advancing into German territory? Because it just kind of seems like they've been here for
I think this was
weeks.
I think this was a after like I think this was obviously Germans had invaded France. I think this was after US troops had kind of pushed the Germans kind of back out and then the Germans were trying to retake Bastogne again. I think that's what was going on. It's been a long time since I've studied my World War II history.
I was gonna say we're doing a podcast about World War II, and neither of us really know. Um, the Battle of the Bulge, also known as the Ardennes Offensive, was the last major German offensive campaign on the Western Front. It took place from December 16th, 1944 to January 25th, 1945. So, yeah, that's kind of why they're like stuck there, I guess. Cuz I was like why are they just like if they're trying to advance, why are they just sitting there for like weeks like not doing much? I feel like you would have retreated by now and, you know, came up with a new plan of attack rather than just take this ass whooping, because it feels, that's what it feels like.
Oh, 100% the entire episode felt like they were just getting which I loved at the little end kind of credit thing where they always kind of sum up what was historically going on when they're like it lasted until the troops came in. No one from the 101st will ever agree that they needed help.
I'm like, I don't know, man. You might have needed some help. I am very intrigued to see what the heck is going on with Buck. Because we got last episode, we got zoned out, kind of like out of it, Buck. This episode, he's just being kind of a weirdo.
He is yeah, when he's like, who's singing? Who's stop that singing? And they're like freaking out, and then at the end when they're all kind of under the shelter and he's like, your name's Edward? Huh. It's like, dude, you've been with this guy for a long time now.
Yeah, he's like we're just like the what was it, the barbarians waiting for the Huns to come through the trees or whatever and burn down Rome. And then Babe is like, what is college like? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he's definitely suffering from battle fatigue right now.
He's showing Garnier the photo of him and his girl. And then he's like, yeah, she left me. Dang, right around Christmas? Yeah, you're like, what the heck?
Well, maybe that's part of the thing too. That's part of the reason that he's starting to crack.
It might be.
I
I wonder
also
how he
feel
would have, like,
poor Garnier who is dealing with a UTI and can't get treatment for it at all, complaining that it hurts when he has to pee, and the medic's just like drink more water, and he's like that just makes me pee, and that's what hurts.
I literally have nothing.
I have no penicillin for you.
It do be like that sometimes, I guess. I mean, he's especially when he's running around and just asking everyone for their morphine that's in their little like aid kit. Like, I highly doubt he's carrying some penicillin with him if he's
All right, so I'll be
scrounging and
honest. At the
begging.
beginning of the episode, as they kept scrounging for morphine, I 100% thought he was just gonna be taking it.
Oh my god! Like the
Did that pass? No, that didn't pass by your mind when like he was collecting
no,
it. Like when I saw him like by himself in the foxhole, I was like, is this dude gonna be like not like obviously like full medical dose, but I was like, is this dude gonna be like just taking it on the side? Because
no,
hey,
Ben. I thought very holistic. I
that
was
stuff
like,
did
man.
happen though.
I mean, yeah, but I was like,
That was a thing.
I was like, no, he needs this for a just cause. He's a good guy. And then the one dude does joke about it. He's like, "You taking that shit?"
Well, once they made the joke about it, I realized that that probably wasn't the case. But for a minute there, I was like, is this dude just like, is he dipped in a little bit and now he's got a little bit of a problem?
This week's episode is brought to you by Audible. You can go to audibletrial.com/cocktails and classics to get a 30-day trial. We've been doing Band of Brothers on the podcast, and after all, it is based off a book by Stephen E. Ambrose, and you could use your Audible trial if you're interested to listen to the audiobook narrated by Tim Jerome. If you're a Prime member, you could get 2 credits per month. Audible has more than audiobooks. They also have our podcast and other originals.
As someone who does quite a bit of traveling for work, and sometimes when you travel for work and you're on site or you're gone over a weekend, it's nice to just be able to pop in and just kind of take a walk, explore new places, and have someone read a book to you. That's what I've been doing this week while I've been out here on the West Coast, popping in some headphones, listening to some books while I take a walk, or just kind of find a time to explore. It's nice, and it keeps people from bothering me, and I get to learn something sometimes, depending on the book. So yeah, I definitely would recommend for anyone. Like Dylan said, I think it's a great tool too if you're just something at work. Kind of keeps you a little bit less distracted and allows you to be productive.
That's funny you said that while you were exploring. The other day I went on a jog and I listened to a podcast and I was like, oh, this is enjoyable. But then I kind of felt like a psycho as I'm like running and laughing. Uh, like to something that no one else can hear. You're just kind of like giggling to yourself. Oh my God, everyone probably thinks I'm fucking crazy.
Yeah, I've had that when I've listened to comedy. I will listen to some like comedy audiobooks where a comedian might be reading their own book. Yeah, there's times where I'm just sitting there and all of a sudden if I'm like walking around, I'm laughing and yeah, people just look at you like you're insane.
But hit up the show notes or just type into your browser audibletrial.com/cocktails and classics. There will be a link below in the show notes. And get yourself your 30-day free trial. Try it out. Get yourself an audiobook.
Also, I'll be honest, the entire time, the actor who plays Roe looks just like another actor, and I thought it was him for the entire time. I had to go through IMDb. I was like, wait a minute. After the episode, I was like, is it this guy? It was not. I was just thrown off, but they look very similar.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out who he was because he does kind of look familiar. He also does a great job. Like, I will say, as a lead in this episode, he freaking knocks it out of the park.
Have you ever watched Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Amazon Prime?
I have not. I've watched the trailer quite a few times.
In that show, they feature Lenny Bruce, who is the actual, comedian from the 1960s, and the actor who plays Lenny Bruce is named Luke Kirby. And this dude and Luke Kirby could be freaking brothers, if not twins. I saw this dude and I'm like, this has to be him. That's got to be the guy. Then I looked it up and I'm like, oh shit, it's not. But they look identical.
Yeah, so when Winters finally orders him to like go back into town, and I'm like, all right, yeah, great. Like Roe needs this. Go see your girl, and then it's like a bombing run. I was like, oh no. I
That was a heartbreak.
I was like, dude, if this place gets hit in this bombing run and like Eugene sees it, it's gonna break this man. And surprisingly, it didn't that we know of. I feel like he kind of like he had his moment with the hat and ran back into battle, but like for the most part, he at the end of the episode, like you said, we do have kind of a light point where he like uses her hat or her like um whatever like her head dressing
Oh,
to
her scarf.
yeah
Yeah.
to like use as a bandage for Babe. But yeah, I was like, oh no, this is not gonna go well. I was so ready for the worst to happen.
So, um, about the nurse Renee Lemaire, it's not actually historically known if Roe met her in real life, but she was a nurse who volunteered at the aid station. It's said that she helped over 150 wounded patients, and during that bombing, she she managed to save 6 soldiers from the building, and she died when she went back in to try to save the 7th.
Well,
So, like, not just, you know, not just doing good things as a nurse, but like just dying as a absolute badass. So, apparently, it's said that she was wrapped in a parachute from the 101st and buried in Bastogne by the soldiers. But kind of a cool, for the fact that like you don't really see anything about that in the show. It's just that you know he once he gets there in the bombing, he finds the scarf. But to find out that she saved 6 people and was trying to save a 7th of losses in the show, that one's a one of the more badass ways to go.
I mean, this might be somewhat of a spoiler, I guess now. Not that there's many details to it, but it's one of the trivia on IMDb. It says because Webster wasn't in episodes 6 and 7, Eon Bailey went on vacation to India while the rest of the cast was filming. The cast members used the jealousy and resentment they felt towards him when he came back to channel their characters' feelings towards Webster in episode 8. Uh,
Oh,
Interesting.
yeah, that'll be interesting to see come episode 8.
The photo that Buck shows of him and his girl is of Neil McDonough and his actual wife.
Oh, very cool. I've heard that the main reason that his career never really took off the way, like, a lot of the roles he plays are like the bad guy roles on television and things, and he never took off as a leading man, is that he won't do like roles with romantic interests. I don't know if it's a religious thing or just like his relationship with his wife, but that's one of the big reasons that he never really
He's not a
blew up.
floozy. He's a one girl kind of guy.
Yeah, I can't. Like I said, I can't remember if it was. I don't think it was a big. It might have been something to do with a religion thing, but I'd find that hard to believe because he plays a lot of bad guys who kill a lot of people. So he was going to star in an ABC show, but refused to act in sex scenes, citing his family and Catholic faith. And because of that, I think he lost like a lot of roles due to his unwillingness to do like love scenes as an actor.
I can see both sides of it. I feel like you don't necessarily need to be like you don't necessarily need to do those types of scenes. Like most of the times, what do they add to the movie? But yeah, I don't know. That is interesting. That like I mean, good for him just sticking to his morals. I mean, he still has a great career.
No, I mean he's still had a hell of a career. I mean, I think he's probably one of the defining character actors of the hell. I think since like the early 2000s through now. And who's to say? I mean, hell, I feel like Steve Buscemi was seen mostly as a character actor, and then he had his own with Boardwalk Empire, was like the leading man of an HBO show for a while. So there's no guarantee. It's never too late. Oh, Smokey, poor Smokey, shot through the shoulder, through his other shoulder, and
Like hit his spine, I
paralyzed.
guess. Right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just
Yeah, I was kind of confused for a second because like it hit him, and I was like, wow, he really went down just from like getting hit in the arm, but it just had to be like the way he was angled, like passed through him.
so I'm reading his biography on the Band of Brothers wiki. I don't believe he'll be back, but there's positivity that eventually he Smokey Gordon did regain all bodily movement.
That's kind of crazy.
I guess he had back pain for the rest of his life, but he did end up. Yeah, he said while he was in the hospital, a doctor basically like accused him of like trying to get out, and so just to kind of piss him off and like keep him going. But he almost wasn't because he kept improving. The army wasn't going to release him because they would have to pay him for a full disability if they released him at that point. I guess basically he was finally discharged with 90% disability after after his dad threatened to drive him down to the Capitol building, march him onto the Senate floor, strip him naked, and let someone besides the army make the determination. What a baller move! What a baller move by a parent to just be like, "Oh no, fine, all right, all right. You want to play hardball? Let's play hardball." I'm excited to see we're getting into some heavy with this battle kind of coming in as the realistically, I mean, this was part of the overall battle of the Bulge, so I'm assuming we're going to get more into that now that well, so the episode ends with them talking about the fact that Eisenhower's forces or I guess not Eisenhower, more Patton's forces kind of open up and kind of help out with the 101st, but they didn't really show it in the episode, so I'm curious if that's going to kind of like be what the next episode. I could see that being kind of the intro to the next episode, as it then kind of dives into the next part of the Battle of the Bulge. But
I'm a little like I don't necessarily know if I always need the after after the episode little explainer thing. Like especially like if you know what you're saying, like if the next episode's also gonna be like Bastogne, Battle of the Bulge, I don't know if you need to explain all this stuff to me. Like especially like the 101st thinks they never needed help. I'm like, okay, now you're just thinking that 101st kind of just sounds like chotches, you know? No offense, thank you for your service, 101st,
uh
but like, you know,
Yeah, you're just kind of making them look like they're smug. I like it when it's been things where, like, I feel like a couple of the things that they kind of have talked about where then it's the next episode just kind of glazes over it. Like, I know there's been a couple things where it's just been like, oh, hey, this is the reason for X, Y, and Z. Because then the next episode just goes completely. It might skip like 3 weeks and not talk about the ending of a battle that happened. Or like the episode where they talk about how they took out the German guns, and they're like, this is still trained at West Point. Like, this is still like the maneuver that they teach. Like, that's kind of a cool thing to see. But this one with being like, you know, they hunkered down until Patton and his troops came through. It's like, okay, but you could just show that in like 3 minutes of the episode. And then if you wanted to end the card with a recap, fine. But I don't know. I understand it. I think some of them can be cool, but then at other times I get it where it's just like, I don't think this is necessary.
It's a love hate thing for me. I do enjoy, like, I enjoyed the interviews at the beginning, and I think this is just another aspect of that, like tying it back into like these are real events, like this really happened. Where this is based off a book of people's life, and just kind of like, oh hey, like this, you watch this, this is what happened after the fact, or that this led to this, But I mean, I love the interviews at the beginning are some of the best stuff for me. Just because it's like, you're hearing firsthand from these guys about things that later become prevalent in the episode, and it's just like, damn, like these guys lived this shit, like, wow. Well, Ben, the next episode is the second highest rated episode in the series. Does that get you excited? Get your jimmies
I'm
rustling
hype.
a little bit?
I'm hype. I'm here for it. I'm excited.
I don't know. I'm hooked. I feel like each week as we get ready to record, and I have to like watch the episode and stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, let's go. Get to watch another episode.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's one of those where there's been times where we've done some movies where I'm just like, oh God, I have to watch this. But with this, I'm always like, oh yes, okay, cool. Sometimes I might not find time during the week, so it might be kind of the day of where it's like, hey, can we record? And I'm like, yeah, wait, yes, I can find the time and I can sit down and watch this. So like, it's exciting, especially as I know we kind of looked at some of the IMDb ratings for some of the episodes coming up, and yeah, I know this one's one of the highest rated, so I'm excited. And just the title, The Breaking Point, makes me think that it's going to be an action-packed episode for sure.
Yeah. I'm a little nervous. I feel like they've been foreshadowing things a little bit about like is Buck gonna something gonna happen to him? Like he's not doing too hot. I kind of hope Roe comes back. Um, we may never see him again. This might have been just his one episode, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm a little scared that we're gonna get to the point where like it's gonna be super intense and we might see some casualties, which not looking forward to. But yeah, I like you. It's gonna be actiony. I feel like it's gonna be a big episode. I feel like, especially with the ratings. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Check us out next week as we do Band of Brothers episode 7, The Breaking Point. Hope you're watching along. Watch along on HBO Max. Listen along wherever you get your podcasts and where you're listening right now. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter over at www.cocktailsandclassicspod.com. Head over to our Instagram. There'll be a post there about this episode, and let us know your thoughts on Band of Brothers. And was this your favorite episode so far, like mine? Let us know. Share us with your friends and family. Leave a review wherever you listen. That really helps us out, or a rating. And as always, watch responsibly.